Okay, I think we're ready to start. What you'll want to do with your paper, your 12 by 18 paper, is cut that down into a square. I'm recommending a 12 by 12 square. I've cut this into two squares. Mine are a little smaller at 8 by 8, just so that I can kind of demonstrate here, make it manageable in the time that I'm hoping to give here. I've got two squares, two identical pieces of paper. Then you need to tape your paper down. You can see the taping. I just used some masking tape here to tape down my all edges. I know you can't see the other edges, but all edges should be taped down. Maybe overlap a little bit by, I did an eighth or so of an inch. Quarter an inch is fine. Quarter would be good on a 12 by 12. So we want to keep that down, because what can happen is when we start to put the watercolors here, it can start to curl and ripple, and then it's better if we let that dry and then take off the tape. It'll be less ripply. Okay, so what you'll need some water in a little cup, right, for your watercolors. You're going to need your watercolor, your paint set, and do the best with that. I'm going to be mixing maybe a little bit with this paint set, and I also have some of these. They're kind of hard to see. They're just liquid watercolors for today. You need some brushes. I've got a few brushes here. Some of them are like fine detail, right? A little bit less so. Any kind of size will work, even if it's not real small like that. I'm working pretty small. Again, with that watercolor, those watercolor sheets, I gave you two of those sheets, a little bit thicker paper in your pack. To start painting here, one of these paintings needs to be warm colors, and one needs to be cool. One needs to be geometric shapes, and one needs to be the organic or biomorphic shapes. I'll just start, maybe just, I could start making shapes like this. So I think I've decided here I'm going to do geometric shapes. So the next step, of course, will be painting in those. I'm going to try to keep, like I said, this is going to be my warmer palette. So I'm going to start painting those things in. We talked about how when you use watercolors, you want to use lighter and thinner kind of paint generally. That's when watercolors really sing. And those are called, like we said, those are called watercolor washes. Now, you're going to have to, as I'm working on this, I'm going to have to remember, and one of these, I need to use one of my experimental methods. I think I'll do that on my next one, since I'll just demonstrate here kind of how I'm going to do this. Now, like I said, you can either, draw everything out, or just kind of, freestyle. I'm going out here on a limb and just making a triangle. I don't have one drawn in, but I think I can handle it. You got to use your mixing palette on this. So I don't want colors that are coming straight out of your color cups or color cakes in your watercolors. I want something that is original to you. You're mixing some colors in that color tray. I can kind of show you what I mean there. Again, take a look here. Right, I'm mixing a little bit of this together. See what could happen. I'm getting some fresh or interesting, some new colors. Okay, I'm thinking here about spreading my color around. And, I know I got some mostly warm colors here. I went with geometric and warm colors. Just trying to spread the color around a little bit. And I decided to have more focused shapes there towards this area. And they're kind of relaxing and getting larger as they come out. Okay, to take off, this is now dry. So to take off the tape, this is a little trick that I've learned. It depends on how long the tape has been on there. But if it's been on a while, if you pull that tape off straight up, like maybe you would normally pull, sometimes it pulls up the fiber. But I've kind of learned that if you pull the tape kind of low and to the side like this, so you're pulling kind of across the table like that, if you pull it like that, oftentimes that's more successful and it doesn't seem to tear the paper much. Now I have completed my warm painting. I'm going to start doing some cool colors. And here I'm not going to pre-draw. You could pre-draw, but I think I'm going to do something kind of intuitive here. Now this we're trying to do organic or biomorphic kind of shapes. Some kind of pattern could be nice. some kind of rhythm. Fortunately, I don't have time to finish this painting, so I'm going to have to go ahead with some other pieces of paper and just kind of show what that would be like. I've tried to make things a little lighter on the edges and a little more concentrated in the center, maybe upper right. Yeah, my other piece is a little bit like that. And if we look at that one, it's a little got that denser area here, and then it kind of falls off to the edges. I'm trying to mimic that kind of similar thing with this painting. Imagine these are my two paintings. I have a little painting here one of my students did some years ago, elementary. And then I have a photograph here that was a test kind of photo. I think I took in Washington, D.C. Anyway, those are the two pieces I'm going to use. Imagine these are the two now. What we're going to do is we're going to take one of them and we're going to fold it in half. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a ruler and a pencil, and I am going to make a little mark here. Maybe, for you it might be a 1/2 inch in. For me, I think I'm going to do a 1/4 inch. Anyway, I'll make a mark here about a 1/4 inch in, and then again about a 1/4 inch in down here. I'm just going to draw a line straight across there. Then I'm going to make my next measurements here, and I think I'm going to go, because of the scale, maybe I'll do 1/2 inches, but you'll probably do 1/2 inches too, I would imagine. To make this quick, maybe I'll do 1/2 inches. So I would say even with the 12 by 12, you just do it 1/2 inches. I'm going to connect those, and this is the most precise option. I'll show you another way that you can do this if you choose, but this is the, for those who want to be precise, this is a way to do it. Okay, so I got all those lines done there. Now, I'm going to take my other piece, flip that over, and I'm going to do a similar thing down the line here. So, my half marks, flip it, same thing. So you could also then draw your lines straight across all the way down like that if you'd like. What we're going to do here is we're just going to cut all the way up to that line. So up to the line. And there's our painting so far. I did go ahead and put some lines on these, so I'm going to cut these now. So now I'm going to take my original one here, and I'm going to take number 1 piece, maybe it's the bottom, looks like, and then I'm just going to weave that in, over under, something like that. And sometimes there's a little, a little trick that I guess I've tried. If you have something that's a little more stiff, sometimes easier to work it in and out. Something like this ruler, almost working like a shuttle for me in my loom. Then I can go like this and see if I can just run that right through. Like that. And then I do have to pull this out because it's going to go the other way next time. Now every time you weave this in, you lose a little tiny space there. There's a few kind of challenges or alterations that you can make for students. Let's say you're doing this with a higher level, like 5th graders. There are some things that you can challenge those students to do. We'll talk more about warp and weft, but you can change both the thickness of your warp and weft, the vertical and the horizontals. I'm going to actually half the size here. To do that, I'm just going to come in here, and I have an X-Acto blade, so you can just take a razor, and I'm just going to cut like that and kind of half each one of these. Okay, so I moved my ruler through again, and here I'll just see if I can turn that up as we've done in the past. A little trick. And we'll put this next one in, and we'll see. It'll be a little different, but I'm ready for it. Now, what's kind of neat about this process is as I'm going, you can see that I changed. You know, it was thicker, just this 1/2 inch, and now I went kind of almost like a 1/4 inch for what's called the warp, which is the vertical part. And now we can also change. We can also change the width or thickness of what's called the weft, going this way, latitudinally. So I can actually, I'm going to try to make that a little bit more slender. And you could cut this again with a razor and a straight edge if you want to be very precise, or if you're open to be just kind of loose. I wanted to also tell you, as you're, even before you cut, you fold it in half, and before you cut, you don't have to cut straight lines. I measured out and cut straight lines all the way through. But for another kind of creative way that you could approach this is when you cut, you can also, do some kind of curved things, something like that, or these can be all different kind of curves. It could be quite curvy as you work through, very irregular. So that's something to keep in mind. And then, of course, when we pull this out, which we'll have these irregular kind of warp lines as we weave through. So get some interesting things kind of going there. Okay, as we go to finish up this piece, we're going to want to kind of tack down the edges of our weft pieces. And to do that, it's quite simple. We're just going to take a little glue here, and I just have some Aleene's, and we're just going to put a little dot underneath right there, and then just kind of go down the line, just a small little dot, tack those down. We can do all the front sides, and then I can flip, and then I can just do a little tack, little dot of glue on each one of those as I go down the edge to hold those into place, keep them to lay flat. One thing that I might mention is that as you put in your weft pieces, every single time you put one in, you lose a little bit of space. So you will find that you won't be able to probably fit in every single one of your weft pieces. You're just losing a little bit at each time, and sometimes that equals up to a whole strip of your weft, which is okay in the end. You just don't include that one. But something good to know. If you feel like it should all fit, it doesn't really all fit. Getting in your final piece of weft can be a little bit tricky because there's not a lot of space there for it to slide into. It also becomes a little difficult to push through because it's got so much binding here. You want to make sure that you try to pull everything down so you have as much space as possible. And then what I sometimes use, you could use a pin, you could use, in this case I have an X-Acto knife, but what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of like poking into it a little bit to pull it along, to see if I can pull it through there. And then come in here, and then kind of poking it to just pull it through, because I'm having a difficult time pushing at this end because it becomes not rigid or strong enough to push through. Hey, there you have it. I've pulled my last piece of weft through, and we're looking at something like that. Just for your interest, here are a few others that I've kind of made. You know, this one was painted on one side of the paper. It was just a poster, actually. It got cut up there, but kind of fun, and a little bit of different of thickness, a little bit thinner over here, going a little bit thicker, but it has kind of a cool look. So that's one of them. Here's one by a student, watercolor one. Real simple, but kind of cool.